It's a condemnation of mainstream media, and it's done through a collection of articles that detail the different ways Canadian media has erased Palestine from the news.
They will replace words like pro-Palestine with anti-Israel. They will increase the uses of wording like terrorist and terrorism.
And I think they got it. Just by signing the pledge, they came under attack, and they understood what we experience every day when we advocate for Palestine.
It is always shocking the way that the media is able to dehumanize Palestinian people and discount their ongoing struggle, discount the occupation.
And I think Mamdani's proven that as well, right? So that anti-Semitism card wasn't working on him, and that's incredible, especially in New York. Assalamu alaikum. I am Ahmed Ramadan for Muslim Network TV, and this is GTA Muslims Today. I have the pleasure with sitting here with the co-editor of this new book, When Genocide Wasn't News, and with Desmond Cole, who's a senior journalist at The Breach. Guys, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
So my first question to you, Dania, is the name of the book is very interesting. When Genocide Wasn't News. How did you come to this title?
Yeah, the title for us was really to showcase or to forefront the fact that the Canadian media industry, the mainstream media industry, has been complicit in the genocide of Palestine in Gaza by, the various manifestations, whether it be reprisals against those who try to report what's happening, or their absolute silence and lack of coverage of what is happening in Gaza. And so this really is a collection, it's a condemnation of mainstream media, and it's done through a collection of articles that detail the different ways Canadian media has erased Palestine from the news.
So Desmond, in what ways, just to expand on what Dania is saying, in what ways do you feel like Canadian media has failed what is taking place in Gaza and the genocide?
Well, I would say that, as my colleague and one of the co-editors of this book, Martin Lukács, said this evening, some of it is not a failure. Some of it is intentional. Some of it is about making deliberate choices not to cover the genocide in a way that is illuminating to Canadians, in a way that will engender sympathy and concern for Palestinian life. So it's not an accident, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. It's a deliberate set of choices that is being done by the media. And, I'll give you an example. We just wrote a piece at The Breach about a very large mainstream Canadian publication, a newspaper called The National Post. The National Post takes wire stories and rewrites them and then republishes them without the audience having any idea what's happened. And they've been doing this specifically as it relates to Gaza and as it relates to stories about Israel's siege. They will replace words like pro-Palestine with anti-Israel. They will increase the uses of wording like terrorist and terrorism, and they will avoid humanizing language about Palestinian people. And so these are all choices that the media is making. And we published this publication, and we are doing the work that we're doing at The Breach to try and be a counter to the absences and the silences and the complicity in the mainstream.
I think that's very important. This is also what we're trying to do here with our network, just to not always complain about the mainstream media, but provide an alternative that is more reflective of actually what's going on and the truth and reporting what's happening. So my next question, just about this book, how did that, not just the title, but the idea come about? I believe there's many contributors to this book, many articles. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the thought was, in coming up with this idea, is that we know there are different variations or manifestations of anti-Palestinian racism in mainstream media. And there have been many, excellent journalists who have put their livelihoods on the line, their reputations on the line to counter it, to expose what is happening within the industry. And the thought was we wanted to collect their work to highlight and put it together so people can see these are not one bad apple here and there, that this is a systemic problem that happens across the media. And by putting it together, we now have created a resource of testimonies about, journalist experience within the media and highlighting some of the ways they have failed in their journalistic duty in reporting fairly on what is happening in Palestine, or even worse, deliberately, again, as Desmond said, making choices that in fact, manufacture consent amongst the public, or trying to manufacture that consent amongst the public to allow this genocide to continue. And so this is intended to be a tool, a collection of testimonies that people can pick up and read and better understand how the media, the mainstream media industry has worked against Palestine.
So, Desmond, are you surprised at how sort of brazen sometimes the framing of what is taking place has happened? And do you see a difference? A lot of what they're saying is not resonating anymore with people. Have you noticed a difference between kind of the message that they're pumping out and then receiving it on the other end, that a lot of people that used to pick up on that are not buying into what they're saying anymore?
I wouldn't say that I am surprised, to answer your first question. It is always shocking the way that the media is able to dehumanize Palestinian people and discount their ongoing struggle, discount the occupation of a place like Gaza or the West Bank entirely from their coverage. It is shocking, but we cannot afford to be surprised as journalists. We see this all the time. But as far as the way that things seem to be changing now, I think what has happened is all of the attempts that the media has made to try and dehumanize Palestinians and to push this story away, to make Canadians not interested, those have failed, and they're running out of tactics to try and suppress this kind of conversation. And what's also happening is, Canadians are seeing things like Israel trying to put itself in charge of a food program for people that it has decimated in Gaza, and not being able to even have enough discipline within its military to stop soldiers from shooting at people who are coming to get food aid. Those kinds of brazen acts can only really be classified in one way. It is very hard to try and blame Hamas or to try and blame some outside force or some threat for the slaughtering of people who you put in a situation of famine and now are coming to you for food and are being subjected to violence once again. So I believe the tide is turning because the conditions are horrific. Famine is a real reality for people on the ground. And I simply hope that Canada as a country is able to put more pressure on our elected officials. Dania has been part of the Vote Palestine campaign, where a kind of record number of politicians now are expressing at least some level of concern, support, solidarity. And we just want to see those numbers grow. We want to see divestment. We want to see boycott. We want to see arms embargo between this country and Israel. We want the international community to do whatever it can to bring this carnage to an end.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So I just wanted to pick up on what Desmond was saying. When it comes to APR and anti-Palestinian racism and the Vote Palestine campaign, you actually got to witness politicians in the most mild support for Palestine get some anti-Palestinian racism just for mildly, in the most mild way, supporting that. And, how was that experience, just being able to show real life example to people that might have been on the fence or not really believing how it works?
Yeah, I mean, I guess becoming one of the examples of anti-Palestinian racism is, one way for them to understand the experience of what happens when we speak on Palestine. And I think they got it. Just by signing the pledge, they came under attack and they understood what we experience every day when we advocate for Palestine. But the important thing is, that many candidates signed, over 300 signed the pledge, and over 27, about approximately 27 were elected MPs, which suggests you can be openly pro-Palestine or support the Palestinian movement And it supports your career ambitions or your political ambitions. It doesn't end your ambitions like it was felt to be back in the day. So there is a change. And people, the public, are expecting their elected officials to represent them, to do better, to be principled, and take a human rights-based stand on Palestine in order to get their vote. And we are now seeing that change happening, and we hope people will hold their elected officials now accountable for what they've pledged.
And I think Mamdani's proven that as well, right? So that anti-Semitism card wasn't working on him, and that's incredible, especially in New York. So I have so many more questions to ask you, but time is always against us. So my last question is, if you can just give a message to our viewers, whether it's about journalism or standing up for Palestinian rights or whatever message you'd like to give them.
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, we have to continue talking about Palestine, whether it be at school or wherever you work or in the media. We can't stop talking about Palestine. There's many organizations, grassroots organizations that exist. So go out and join them. And there's many ways we can contribute to the movement. Just do what you can do within your means that, fit within your risk level. But yeah, don't stop talking about Palestine.
I would agree. I would say that sometimes people believe that going to a public demonstration is the only way that they can demonstrate their support. And in reality, the people in your social life, your family, your friends, your colleagues, your classmates, those are the people who you have the most ability to influence. And so you should focus on that. And that's enough. And the other thing I would say is support independent media, because those of us who want to tell these stories and break away from what the mainstream is failing to do, we can't do it by ourselves, and we need people's support.
So stay tuned. We're going to be speaking to a couple of contributors to this book, When Genocide Wasn't News. Desmond, Dania, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.